So if you had asked me when I was a little kid what I wanted to be when I grew up, I would have said a doctor, not an astronaut. It took me 25 years to change my mind, and that happened one day when a friend sent me a video that would forever change my life. I want to share a few minutes of that video with you now. Can we get the audio on?
Oh, golly, I remember going through launch, which is an overwhelming experience. The engines cut off. I felt myself floating out of the seat. I floated over to the window, looked out, and we were coming up over the coast of Africa. And that's when it hit me. I'm in space. And, you know, I just got incredibly excited because it's something I had dreamed about since I was 6 years old.
I think you start out with this idea of what it's going to be like. And then when you do finally look at the Earth for the first time, you're overwhelmed by how much more beautiful it really is when you see it for real. It's just like it's this dynamic, alive place that you see glowing all the time.
It was truly incredible to be up there, doing what I always wanted to do my whole life, and then to kind of glance back at our planet and see that view was just tremendous.
I can only describe what I've seen. You know, looking down at the Earth and you see that line that separates day into night slowly moving across the planet. Thunderstorms on the horizon casting these long shadows as the sun sets. And then watching the Earth come alive, and you see the lights from the cities and the towns.
The events you see from space, like flying over thunderstorms, looking at them from the top, were spectacular. Like a fireworks show going on, and you're looking at it from the very top.
You know, shooting stars going below us, or you know, dancing curtains of auroras. It's just very hard to describe all the, you know, the colors, the beauty, the motion.
This video changed my life. Film overview was 18 minutes long. I was glued to my screen the entire time, and by watching it, I learned about this idea known as the overview effect. These astronauts who had the opportunity to go to outer space were forever changed by what they saw, this new perspective of the planet. And I wanted to bring that feeling back to everyone here down on Earth. So a few months later, I was working at a consulting job, and I started a space club, as one would naturally do. And I was preparing a talk about satellites and how satellites work. And I figured I would pull in some satellite imagery, like we all have access to. So I typed the word Earth into the search bar of my computer, thinking it would zoom out and show the entire planet. Instead, it zoomed in, and this is what I saw. This is Earth, Texas. This is a small town in northern Texas that I had never heard of before. But what I saw on my screen was one of the most beautiful things I'd ever come across. These are pivot irrigation circles, which is how they water crops in the Midwest of the United States. This set me off on this adventure to find these places of human impact, the places where we've created, and show them in a beautiful way to inspire this perspective. So, a few examples. The Port of Rotterdam, one of the largest shipping facilities in Europe. A solar concentrator in Seville, Spain. An airplane graveyard in Tucson, Arizona. Shipping containers outside the port of Singapore. The Mount Whaleback iron ore mine in Pilbara, Australia. Central Park in New York City. So I started Daily Overview, and every day for the last 4 years, we've posted one of these pictures and described what you see in the image. I could have never imagined all of the places the project has gone. We have more than 700,000 followers on social media. We sell prints in stores across the United States and CB2. Our images are used by artists such as Khalid for background visuals and marketing purposes. Exhibitions all around the world, like this one we did in Sweden last summer. And I also released a book a couple years ago called Worldview. If you want to check it out, I'll be selling copies at the breakout session after this. But what's so inspiring is that this idea of the Worldview effect is not about the beauty of the composition, but how it's taken hold, and that's what I want to talk about today. The Worldview effect, I believe, will become more of a prominent thing in our culture, not only experiencing it firsthand, but secondhand through virtual experiences. So as I said, yes, it could be amazing to be able to do a spacewalk like this and attach yourself to the International Space Station, but what is more likely for many more people is to have something like a virtual experience with Google Earth VR, which they released last year, or other companies who are trying to do something similar. So you can see in this demo, you might be able to control your flight through the Worldview, or perhaps you'll just get a little dizzy and carsick. We'll see. You can see the Duomo there in Venice. So right now, based on the news stories and a lot of events, it's pretty clear we're entering into a new space age. And what do I mean by that? In the past, space travel and space flight up to the International Space Station or the launch of any satellite has typically resulted in boosters from the rockets being just put into the ocean, just wasted and not reused. But here in California, led by the work at SpaceX, now Elon Musk's company is not just throwing these rockets into the ocean, they're landing them on drone ships at sea, or recently following the Falcon Heavy launch, landing 2 rockets simultaneously on land. This is a huge deal, right? Can you imagine if JetBlue flew a plane from San Francisco to New York, and after the flight they just threw the plane away and said, let's get a new one to go back? That would be a giant waste of money. And in space travel, it's been kind of like that since the 1960s with the Apollo program. So if you look at this chart from a recent Elon Musk presentation, you'll see that SpaceX's rocket capability is on the high end here, on your right. And when you compare those same rockets in terms of efficiency, in terms of launch cost, they're the cheapest they've ever been. So not only is it easier to launch things into space now, it's becoming more affordable with each and every day. One of the, I should say quickly, the amount of money going into space is changing because of this as well. More people see the opportunity. $3.9 billion went into the space industry just this last year. And Bank of America projects $2.7 trillion going into the space industry in the next 3 decades. So, as Elon Musk says, we might have a new space race. Space races, all races are exciting. One of the things that you've seen a lot in the news is a lot of satellites, like the ones that I work with, being launched, and more so being launched in the coming years. This is a not to scale drawing or simulation of all of the satellites currently in outer space, but that is the approximation of 4,635 satellites that are currently in space. 1,738 of these are operational, and about 1/3 of those are being used to observe the Earth. In the next year, 1,300 satellites are, in the next 3 years, 1,300 satellites will be launched into space. That is a huge, huge, huge rise in Earth observation, and who else knows what's to come. I want to talk about a few examples of these satellites that I think are pretty exciting and have led to new observations and new innovations. So first, Himawari 8 is a Japanese weather satellite that was launched in 2015. It's 23,000 miles away from Earth. It's in geostationary orbit, which means it's affixed to focus on one location at any moment in time. And they make all of the data with a picture taken every 10 minutes publicly available. So it enables cartographers like Charlie Lloyd, who works at Mapbox here in San Francisco, to create visualizations like this. What you're seeing here is one day on Earth in 12 seconds. That's incredible. This hasn't happened since 1972 when we had the blue marble photograph. Another satellite that you may have heard of, Discover, which was a pet project of Al Gore and the climate movement from 2 decades ago, finally launched in 2015. Now, Discover is 1.5 million kilometers away, so about 1 million miles away. It's also in geostationary orbit, and it's looking at the Earth consistently. It takes a photo about every 2 hours, which enables visualizations like this with a moon transit. So you can see the moon crossing in front of the Earth. Or the solar eclipse that happened last year, when seen from Discover, you can see that shadow crossing the United States that many of us experienced on the ground. So with those two satellites, a lot of exciting things to come as we're continuing to monitor weather patterns and Earth observation in general. So Digital Globe is the company that I work with to create the overhead images that you saw before. But I wanted to share a few interesting images that they've been working on in the past couple of years that takes full advantage of this technology. So their most recent satellite, Worldview 4, has boosters that help the satellite reposition itself for special shots. This may look a little dissimilar or very far away, but what you're actually seeing here is San Francisco. The satellite is able to align itself with star systems on the other side of the planet to get this angle, about 15 degrees for the off-nadir shot. And they take the picture at 10:30 a.m. every morning so that the sun is directly behind the satellite so that there are no shadows in the image. I can zoom in a little bit here too, and you can see where we are. Another similar image shows New York City from the same angle. This is from about 650 miles away when it was taken. So the cameras on the Worldview 4 satellite are so good that you could take a picture of a beach ball in full resolution on the Golden Gate Bridge from Los Angeles, which enables pictures like this. Moving on, Worldview is a company based out of Tucson, Arizona, that is building and operating these Stratolite balloons. So they won't only be used for imagery purposes, they'll also be used for near-space space travel. The balloons can use solar power and potentially stay in one position for 4 months, which will probably be used for surveillance purposes. But they have this Voyager capsule where they will take people to 100,000 feet above the Earth's surface. You won't experience weightlessness at that point, but they are apparently giving these seats up for $75,000 and may have flights within the next year to 2 years. Virgin Galactic, you guys have probably heard of them before, Richard Branson's company. What you'll see here is this space race is potentially just a space race between a number of billionaires, and here's billionaire number 1 with Virgin Galactic. So what you see in this image is 2 planes, actually. The White Knight plane is the larger 2-hold plane on top with Spaceship 2 attached underneath. So the larger plane, well, the 2 planes together will fly to 50,000 feet, and at that point, Spaceship 2 will release from the larger plane as seen there, fire up its rocket engine attached to the back, and then travel to 110 kilometers above the Earth's surface. Now, 100 kilometers is usually the line where people consider the Earth's atmosphere to end, and you officially become an astronaut above 100 kilometers. So you could become an astronaut on Virgin Galactic. Those tickets are $250,000, and Richard Branson said they may have a flight in the next year. They had a crash in 2014 that slowed things down a bit, but we'll see how it goes. Billionaire number 2, Jeff Bezos has his company Blue Origin, in which he invests $1 billion every year. Following a similar model to what you saw with SpaceX and relandable rockets, Blue Origin has their New Shepard rocket, which will fly up, release a capsule with people in it into outer space above Earth's atmosphere, and then come back down and land, making this actually a possibility, making it more affordable. You can see they've already tested this a number of times successfully. And if you look on Blue Origin's websites, they now have jobs available for in-flight experience manager. So it's looking like they're actually ramping things up to figure out what it's going to be like in the capsule, getting people up in space potentially in the next year. And as you're considering which provider to use for your space travel, Jeff Bezos has been bragging a lot that Blue Origin has the largest windows in space at 2.4 feet by 3.6 feet. So you want to get the best view, might be worth investing in a Blue Origin ticket. And to bring this full circle, SpaceX, as you guys saw last month with the Falcon Heavy launch, released Elon Musk's Tesla Roadster into orbit around the Earth, but they're not just going to be releasing mannequins. They actually have plans to send humans not only to the moon potentially by the end of the year, but to Mars, to potentially colonize Mars. So if the two people who are traveling on SpaceX get to go around the moon, they may see this picture that I showed before. This picture, Earthrise, as you may recognize it, was taken by Bill Anders on the Apollo 8 mission. This was the first time that humans ever traveled beyond low Earth orbit, traveled and orbited the moon. And he took this iconic photograph. Now, we haven't traveled beyond low Earth orbit since 1972 on the Apollo 17 mission. So with all this technology, not only the virtual experience with more satellites showing us things we've never shown before, but the potential to send humans to this distant vantage point, I'm excited about what's to come. I believe the overview effect has the potential to change the way we think about ourselves, to change the way we think about the planet, and inspire a greater future to protect the planet. So I'm excited about the future. I'm excited about the overview effect that's to come. And let's all go to space. Thank you.
Woo! Thanks so much, Benjamin.